Very good evening to my dear MOS members and the ophthalmic fraternity who have joined today for this very interesting webinar. As I took over as the president, we had 21 committees which were formed. One of them was public speaking, personality development committee. In this, we had decided, okay, we have a series of lectures. We are already on the third part of the programs. In this, we have taken up the topic as working as a team. Friends, as you all know, uh, alone we can just move a little, but as a team, and today we have expert panelists. So that's why today we have not kept any lecture or any didactic lecture in a way. Instead, we have stalwarts in this field where they have built up teams and worked together and reached pinnacle of success. We have with us the past president, immediate past president, Dr. Mahipal Sachdev sir. He's just going to join in a few minutes. We have Professor Anil Kulkarni sir, Colonel Deshpande sir, Madan Deshpande, the head of the HB Desai unit and the mentor and the advisor. Professor Kulkarni is a teacher of teachers who's built up the huge team in Miraj over a period of last 33 decades. And we have a motivational speaker, our in-house consultant, Dr. Anuradha Tote, also as an expert panelist. She has put in a lot of years into this motivational, and it is her brainchild of having this topic which will benefit all the MOS members, how to go about building a team. And of course, we have the head of the HV Desai, the medical director of HV Desai, Dr. Kuldeep Dole, who is going to get maximum out of all these expert panelists as a moderator. So now, without wasting much time, it's late. I'm sure a lot of people must have joined and will be benefited. Over to you, Dr. Kuldeep, for moderating the whole panel discussion, and welcome all of you for being part. And at one go, you have already agreed at a very short notice. And MOS is extremely, and I, on behalf of Maharashtra Ophthalmological Society, is extremely grateful to you, all of you, sir.
Thank you,
Yes.
Taswara sir, President, Secretary, and all my teachers and seniors. This topic is very dear to me because I am in this field for last 20 years. And I have seen many organizations, many hospitals struggle because of lack of team. And having a building, having a good equipment doesn't make a successful hospital. Successful hospital is built by humans working in that organization, and for which a dedicated effort needs to be done from the beginning of the hospital. And we are here with the leaders who have done that successfully over the years. And let's listen to their experiences of developing, mentoring, and successfully working as a team and bringing the best out of individuals who work with them and still working with them. So I would like to have a question to all the panel members, especially Kulkarni sir and Deshpande sir. When you decide to develop a team, what attributes you find in a person to induct in your team? What characteristics? Because that makes a person likely to work successfully in a team. So if you do you have any set criteria like that? Do you take that into consideration before you induct someone into the team? Yes, sir.
Before you, there are lots of situations where you can select your own team and develop them, or a team is given to you and then you develop them. But if you are supposed to recruit or induct, the main criteria I would like to have stress is attitude. The person is highly educated, highly skillful, but having a negative attitude, they can never be a member of a team. He can be excellent as an individual. So if you want to have a single criteria for judgment, or the most important criteria to decide Whether to have that individual in the team or not, it's the attitude that has to be judged.
Kulkarni sir?
So basically, when we look at these teams which we have built up 3 or 4 places now, what is important is a mutual respect which the team members should have with each other. If you have the mutual respect, then most of the problems can be solved without getting complications. As sir very rightly said, that your expertise and talent is useful provided you are going to work in a team. It's like a sports team also. If you do it in a team spirit, you always win. If you have individual preferences, then the vested interests come into the play. Another important thing is every member should have something like a similar goal. I can't say a common goal, but a similar goal. I'll give you one example that in case you want to establish, supposing a laser center, and there are some people who would like to feel that, okay, you can work, we will be only putting up money, then that doesn't form a team. You can have an additional funding resource from outside, that's a different matter. But when you talk about your core team, people should have a similar common minimum goal. Everybody should be enthusiastic about the things. Then only the teamwork goes to its happy ending.
I totally agree with Professor Kulkarni. The main ideas about that depends upon the organization's culture and the values. And keeping that in mind, we should have a very job clarity, flexibility, because when you are going to recruit somebody on a job A, he should be multitask. He should be ready to multitask when situation demands. Not that always he should do that, then he would not be focused. The other thing should be the competency has to be good and should be willing to become competent. Now, when you talk of competency, I remember an incident. One should not be competent. 2 competency fellows in the team. The fellow should be, we should have a sort of a uniform team, depending upon the core competency of each, complementary to each other, a team builds. But if you go on doing competition with the team members, that will not be a good scenario. Then that leads to sort of a envy and sort of a bad culture. If one has to compete, I can just quote an example which I have quoted other incidents also. Once, long time I was traveling with one famous doctor, Dr. Srikhand Senior, and I asked him, sir, how could you become a competent? He told me when he started practice, he visited those people competent in those days and decided that he would compete with them. And coming home, he thought that why should I compete with them? I should compete with myself. And that's the best way if you want to have a team. People should be learned, taught, and encouraged to compete with themselves because your mind knows how good or bad you are. That's very important. Then the other criteria is behavior. Nowadays, lot is talked about the behavior because behavior can build a team, behavior can destroy the team. So behavior has to be guarded, probed, sort of a thing, and channelized in a proper direction so that it is conducive to the organizational commitment, focus, and the aims.
Dr. Anuradha, if you have to talk from the point of view of motivation, because a team generally is enthused at the beginning of development phase, and then that team becomes little complacent, goes into that plateau mode. So to make that team motivated all the time, do you feel a certain types of activities need to be performed by the organization or by the team leader to keep that team motivated all the time?
Yes, that's a wonderful question. Actually, when you form a team, like if you go into the theory, the stages were given for the team that was given by Bruce Tuckman, and he said that there are 4 stages. Okay, so it is forming, storming, norming, and performing. And we as a leader, we have to look into the whole picture. You have to be there for each stage. So when it is forming, like everybody is into the good mood and good books of everybody is polite and nice, so you just have to introduce all the members in the first stage. So you are motivating them in this way. Second stage, when it comes now, second stage is, when you stay with them, you work with them, and then you know the negative sides of the people as well. So this is the stage when as a leader you have to actively participate into it, because this is the storming phase. Now storming is definitely the irritation, and then you come to know the negative side. This person is dominating, this person is not punctual, he doesn't come on time, and all those things will come up. So you as a leader, you have to keep the team well gelled at this moment, and you have to tell them that, okay, this is our target. Our target is to give quality health care or quality eye care to the patients. Okay, so we have all the specialists. Suppose we have cornea specialist and a retina specialist, we have the staff and everybody and the attendant and all. So we are forming a big team. So all of us are, you cannot say one is white and the other one is gray. We all are, and the other one is black. We all are gray. We have a positive and negative sides. So let us accept each one completely. That is one thing which we have to stress in their minds, that let us accept each one completely and then move ahead. And then you go to the third stage. That is, first is forming, storming. This is norming. Norming is the stage when you take the positive points from all the persons in your team. Someone is punctual, someone is very good at writing, someone is very good at research work. So you can utilize their skills in a different way for your hospital or your organization. And then you come to the final stage of performing. That is how you will be constantly motivating them to give the best performance. And actually, after Bruce Tuckman gave all these 4 stages, his student, I'm not getting the name right now, it starts from M. So this person, a lady, she gave the 5th stage, that is adjourning. But adjourning, actually, I feel, at least in our medical setup, that is very rare. Only when you set up a team for, say, research work, or you set up a team for presentation at some conference, maybe that time you will adjourn or you'll take a pause. Okay, but then again, you'll have to motivate, you'll have to keep on telling them, okay, this is your forte, you can do very well in this field. So you go along. So you take a pause and then again, you start the work. So that is how at each stage you will keep on motivating them as a leader.
Just to, can I add something to your this thing, Anuradha?
Definitely, sir, definitely.
I learned this, during the formation of team and stabilization of team in HUSA hospital. There are 3 most important factors one has to look out as a leader. One is salary, second is security, and third is safety. The most important issues, unless we have them, you can't advise people on an empty stomach, nor you can tell them to do something when they're not very safe. Bravado can be once in a lifetime, but you can't have constant bravado throughout the work culture. So these are very, very important, that they should have a safe environment. They should have an adequate salary. And most important is the security of work, security of long stay, security that he would be heard, security that he would be able to contribute, his contribution is accepted and rewarded. So these are very, very important. And they really motivate themselves.
Very true, sir.
There are 2 types of motivations, as you know better than me. One is the extrinsic motivation, which I talked about just now. But the most important motivation we talk about is internal motivation, intrinsic motivation. And intrinsic motivation is for larger goals. They have to contribute, and we have to acknowledge that when we achieve X, Y, Z, they are the contributors for that. And despite unless they would have contributed, you could have not achieved this. So the sense of appreciation and appealing to them is always important. That will intrinsic motivation also one has to keep in mind, and that is very, very important.
Yes, sir, very true. I really appreciate the points which you have given. It applies to the Maslow's hierarchy, sir. As you said, that you give them food, water, shelter, and then you give them a very good salary, and then a security, and then a good name. Yes, that's how it goes. That's wonderful, sir. Yeah.
You know that experiment on rhesus monkeys they are done, no? That monkey.
Yes.
That was doing it.
Thank you, sir. Kulkarni sir, I would like to know from you. You have a mixed blend of experience of developing team across multiple sectors. You have your individual practice, you have developed group practice, you were head of NGO, big NGO organization. So was working in a team in 3 different settings different, or the principles remain the same?
No, basically, sir, if you are true to yourself, people do appreciate it. Once they realize that you do not have vested interest in whatever you are doing, then there is no clash of interest. Funnily, I will give you one example. When we started our center at Pune, people were asking me, what is your interest? And then whenever I said that, no, I don't have any interest, they used to start thinking about then what must be the hidden interest of Kulkarni sir, why he is coming to Pune. Then I started telling them that, oh, my son is getting MS, so probably he will join. And then everybody said, oh, yes, then it's okay. So point is, you can't be something like that you are at a superior person and you are trying to take a leadership without mixing with them. I can tell you when Colonel Sahib was with us in Mirrors, in his short space, the period wherever he was there, he really transformed our institute into something where people were more answerable as well as more in faith with the management. So, and as rightly said, sir said also, the salary does make a difference basically, but I can just add one thing. We always heard that, sir, charitable institute doesn't mean that we are supposed to do charity. You want to run a charitable institute, you do it. We should be paid. We agree with it. But then we realize that whatever amount of salary you pay, unless you have some basic principles on which you are running that institute or that center, the salaried people won't stay. They will have something more than the salary which they are getting, either in the form of training or in the form of imparting the training or in the form of getting newer things to learn in your institute, or maybe some satisfaction of treating people who will be repaying them in the form of their blessings. So apart from the salary and all other things which Colonel Sahib very rightly mentioned, I feel that this inner motivation about doing something better than only doing the work. See, because we are highly qualified people when you talk about ophthalmologists, and it's not that they are going to work only for the amount which you are giving them. So there has to be some additional motivation apart from the salary, and that actually gives you a better team, because they then start working towards a common goal. Common goal is not a target which is to be achieved. Common goal is something which all of them decide that this is something which we want to do for the society, and then probably we will be earning out of that, we will be spending time, but we will definitely have a satisfaction of doing the best whatever we are able to do.
We are fortunate Dr. Mahipal Singh Sajde of our past immediate past president has joined us. Thank you, sir, for joining.
Apologies,
Welcome, Dr. Mahipal, sir.
apologies, got a little late, but happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. That's a good evening.
Good evening, Ji. Good evening.
Good evening,
Good evening,
sir.
sir.
Good evening. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
I have a
Good evening,
question
sir.
to all the panel members, especially Deshpande sir, Kulkarni sir, and Mahipal sir. Traditionally, what we are told that you catch the people young and develop your team. And so it is easier to develop such a team that you recruit somebody at a fellowship level, give them training, make them junior consultant, then senior consultant, and then automatically that organizational culture, values, everything gets built up in that individual. So what is your experience on that? Because now there are lots of people who join through lateral entry, through multiple organizations, through different cultures, and sometimes that can create some conflict in the existing team. Have you experienced such situations, and have you done anything to neutralize such situations? We can start with Mahipal sir.
Well, thank you very much for the question. It's a great question. What I'll wish to say is that it depends at the stage of evolution of the organization. Okay. For example, let me take the example of Center for Sight. We had just started in 1996, and at that particular time, the main thing was to actually develop an institution and to grow the practice and the number of patients who are coming, and also the super specialization part that has to be brought in. So at that particular time, when you are in the yourself in the I would say your childhood, at that particular time you can get fellows or something, but you don't have that infrastructure to grow that. So what we embarked upon was to get great people along, that is who were in themselves authorities. So the first to join was Dr. Harsh Kumar, then Dr. Lalit Verma, Dinesh Talwar, before that Avnendra Gupta, Dr. Dada, Dr. Tiwari, Dr. Prem Prakash. So basically they themselves had a name, and that is why we could grow the organization. So when you became an adult, I would say, at that particular time, you obviously then start the fellowships, etc. And then you, as you can grow the people, as you rightly said, right from the beginning, and inculcate in them the ethos and the DNA of your organization, that obviously helps. But it is important to see the stage of evolution that you are in, because then at that particular time, if your organization or you have to feed the patients to a newcomer, neither will there be the patients that you can feed onto the newcomer, and therefore there will be a dissatisfaction among the newcomers that what am I doing, I'm not getting. So they would prefer to go to some place which is an established place. But now once you have established the systems, you have the organization name bigger than an individual who is starting a practice. Now I fully agree with your thesis that you need to catch them young and obviously give them something, as was said by Dr. Kulkarni, which is more than what they have wanted. So they need to feel a part of it, and it is not just the clinical work, but it is the research, the academics. Give them the podium, give them, make them do presentations, journal club, whatever you want, and that you tell them that we are going to make you into a key opinion leader tomorrow, and you need to excel, and we will support you. So if they create mistakes, there is somebody as a fallback mechanism. Everyone, when you are in the learning phase, the chances of having complications are more. So you need to grow them, and this helps in the future. At times, there are people who have preset goals when they are coming for a fellowship, that they want to learn something, they want to learn practice, and they have something to fall back and where they want to go back. So that obviously you have to keep a balance on that. And there are various methodologies which different organizations employ. For example, let us take the example of Arvind. If you are doing an MS there, they will not allow you to take a fellowship immediately after MS. They will first want you to work as a medical officer for X number of years and then give you a fellowship. So those are ways and means to actually retain talent for a longer period, that is there. But depending on the evolution, that is something that I wish to say, that you have to chart your own plan. And there is absolutely making the second line is very, very important, because one thing is that change is constant, and the newer generation has certain aspirations, and they have aspirations much higher than our generation. They are more impatient, they are less willing to wait, and they would want things to happen much faster at a jet age. And for them also, work-life balance is something important, which maybe when you make institutions, that does not come into your this thing. And they would possibly want to retire at 55, 60, which we are still at 64 and still continuing to go. So you have to keep a balance, and then there obviously comes a generational shift that is there in the organization. And those who are able to adapt to this generational shift, I think the organizations will only those would survive. Otherwise, there will be a problem that will be there as regards the new people who are coming. But they need growth. That is something very, very important, and that is something which is our bounden duty to get them the growth.
Thank you. Anything to add, Kulkarni sir, Deshpande sir, on this?
Just a corollary to Dr. Mahipal, I would just like to ask, sir, what is the reason for attrition exactly in this thing? Where exactly, in spite of doing all this, we have a loss of a lot of good people moving out?
Opportunities.
Mainly opportunities.
Yeah, so basically, see, the point is that why are we afraid of attrition? I personally believe that if your organization has reached a particular stature, when one leaves, there will be 5 ready to come who could do a better job or who could do an equally good job. The basic problem that we have not understood is that in medicine, longevity of service was there, but it is coming down as more opportunities are there. For example, if I was in All India Institute of Medical Sciences, I knew at that particular time AIMS was the leader in getting any technology.
Yes.
And it wasn't there at other places, but now there are X number of places. Now you have, say, in Delhi, a Medanta, you have a Max, you have a Fortis, you have an Artemis. So we are seeing a lot of jumps of cardiac surgeons, of neurologists, neurosurgeons, etc., which is bound to happen because they have aspiration. And every aspiration, it is depending on whether you are able to give something good to that person. I will just give you an example of somebody who came from LVP, joined us as a retina person, has been with us for 11, 12 years, but somehow it is now his wish that he wants to do fundamental research in retina. So he's going back to LVP. Now, so it depends कि आपका कब जागरूक हो जाता है, मतलब the kind of wishing that you want to have, that when you want to do it. A very nice person, but yes, he has, and why should I come into the way that is there? The opportunities were not there at that particular point. Now there are enough and more opportunities, and people will do this jumping in non-medical fields. Somebody being in a job for more than 3 years is considered to be a rarity with the present MBA generation and things like that. 3 years, 5 years is the max. That it is their itch that they want to, and the same thing is going to happen in healthcare or in medicine. You're going to get a better job, you're going to get a better package, you're going to get a better place with more facilities or something like that. You can do a hopping. You can't really tie them with that, but I am of the strong opinion that if your organization is fundamentally strong, the organization will attract talent, and it's not that one moves out, the other won't come. So that, I think we should take it as a part of life. Attrition is going to be there as a part of life.
Why I asked you is because you spend a lot of money and sweat to groom them so well, and then they leave you. So that is, I think, what the reason you have said is the opportunity.
Somebody else would have groomed them, so you take them.
But basically, sir, I differ from your words, Taswala sir, that if you are grooming them, you should hold on to them.
No, not hold on, sir. Retaining, what are the ways of retaining? We don't hold on.
That's a different matter. Because on the contrary, we should feel happy that people whom you have groomed are being sought after by so many people. And basically, the change should be that whosoever you are training is going to train others, and then he goes out in case of either green pasture or something different. So you make leaders also. You don't have to make and prepare followers all the time.
Correct.
There are two. Coming back to original question, developing the team. I would like to add, like example of HDSI. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. A little louder, sir.
Developing HDSI, they always say that we are a Lagan team. And this Lagan team, though we are Lagan initially, but those are the people who picked up the specialties, developed them, and went to national treasure. So, but doing that, what advantage we had was, maybe there was a little disadvantage earlier, but the most advantage was we got a committed core team, which is difficult to develop by any means. I think Professor Maipal Sajde will agree with me. We will have team, but a committed team is a core team is a very, very difficult to make it. You can't suddenly invite people laterally and make a core team. So this is one of the greatest advantage, to have a sort of a modest beginning and develop them, retain them, and without any attrition. Attrition happens is the law. And don't keep your own organization in mind when you are developing some specialty or some individual. We are working for a national or global issue.
Okay.
We should not be so sort of thinking that no, if you lost to me, is a loss to whole thing. No, is a loss to me is a benefit to somebody, and which I am supposed to do that.
Another question that comes into my mind is that we often feel that the government infrastructure doesn't function that efficiently because of the remuneration policies that they have. Like, it is not performance based. So do we feel that this fixed salary to all model is equally good for team motivation, or we should have a fixed and variable component, which is the norm in most of the industries? What is the, because we talked about the monetary benefit, we talked about the benefit that the individual gets. So how to give this benefit to the entire team so that the entire team feels motivated?
Usual practice of incentive is there, but we have traveled quite a lot. And
is it good or bad for the team development? That's what my question is.
I'm coming to that. We have seen this incentive system is, we have seen is good, attractive, people feel happy. But we have seen in many hospitals that people are victimized to that. Secondly, some one or two people take advantage of that, and then there's a sort of a bad competition set in. But it's a system that works. Other thing is what I say, instead of that, if you give opportunity for a team to develop and grow, I think that would be a better model. In the thing, what you are going to get, money is not all. That's what we have been saying since evening. But if you develop people who are with you, I think definitely there's a better price given to the people who are stayed with you and allow them to grow. I think that is much, much better than incentive. Give them enough. I don't say that you don't give enough. There should be system appraisal also. People who are non-performing, we should have some sort of appraisal system, and you can see that they can't be, there can't be a sort of a law that everybody should be paid like government, or you said that they automatically salary goes on rising or whatever it is to everybody. Gadhe gode sab barabar hai. That doesn't work.
So basically, there is the famous Jack Welch, the GE thing that they said, in which they said that 10%, as per GE, 10% of the staff needs to be given the pink slip every year, and 10% to 15% of the staff needs to get accelerated things, and the rest, depending upon where they are, there will be a little differentiation, but there will be differentiation. So you have to take out the wheat from the chaff. That is something very, very important. The incentives need not be, you said you actually trying to link the incentives to teamwork, right? So
Yes.
you would have the breaking up of the incentive into parts. So one incentive can be basis the teamwork, and the second incentive can be basis your personal performance. So it need not be that you, so for example, if we have X number of centers and we have an incentive basis every quarter, so there is a budget that is decided for the year, and then it is phased out quarter by quarter. So if that particular center performs to X limit, then the entire center will get a Y incentive. Okay. So that collectiveness where everyone has to, whether it is the OPD guy or the investigation guy or the surgery or the pharma or the optical or everyone or the counselor. So everyone has to gel as a team to deliver certain deliverables. It could be like there is an incentive in LVP, if I understand correctly, on publishing papers. So if you have in A-class journals or whatever is the citation index, etc., you get X number of for your promotion, for your increment, etc., etc. The second thing is your personal incentive. So that personal incentive could be that if a counselor is converting a patient to a premium or a higher end surgery or whatever it is, so there is a Y incentive for that person. Or for a surgeon who's doing, say, a cataract. So if you're doing a femto, or you are doing a toric, or you're doing a trifocal, then you would have a personal incentive on your calculation bit. So you have, and the third is the total group incentive. So it can be dissected out.
Okay.
And the fourth would be your performance on which your increment will be given. So one will be a fixed component on which you will get an increment, and then you have a median. At the beginning of the year, at the time of the increment, we say that, okay, we have decided that our average or the mean increment would be 10%, 12%, 9%, 8%, depending upon the good performance. That this is going to be our mean increment percentage that we are going to give. And then you have a delta on that, people who are outshining. So you give them from 5, we grade them from 5 to 1, and it's a 360-degree appraisal. So basis that, even the increment is counted, then the entire center for site performance, then individual center performance, and then an individual's performance, wherever it can be. So that basically you can break it up, and therefore you can try and maintain the team spirit also at various levels, as also an individual excellence or underperformance or overperformance can be either rewarded or maybe punished at a particular point, or that is the system that we tend to follow.
Sir, how frequent is your appraisal? Is it once in 3 months or once in a year? And how do you develop the diagnostic, the criteria for performance? And performance criteria में क्या क्या लेते हो आप? Only the administrative work, the surgical work, or
there is the NPS, or the net promoter score. That means that you can even look from the patients. You can see that how the patient is valuing the doctor or the optometrist or whatever it is. Then you have the seniors and the juniors doing that, and the output that a person has. That means that we do what is called as an average multiplier that we have. That means that in a particular center, see, again, there is a lot of dichotomy. A center like, say, Safdarjung Enclave, where you have a high surgical load, etc., the multiplier for a doctor may be higher. But if there is a new center that you are doing, the multiplier of the revenue that the doctor is doing versus the salary that the doctor is drawing is something. So we have an average which we want is about 4x to 5x for an anterior segment, and about 3x for a retina person. So 3 to 4. So, and it can go up to, from 5, it goes up to 8 or 10. But if somebody is doing consistently 2x or something, then I think the doors are wide enough for the hospital for a person to walk out or something. So basically, you need to do that. So there is a net promoter score that you have to do. That is the patients, as to how the patient feels, how the seniors feel, how the juniors feel. The complication rate is again measured. That is something that you have to see, that for a surgeon, that what are the complications rate that you are creating, and that again needs to be looked at. So it's an extensive kind of a thing, and we do the increments once a year, but there is a midterm appraisal also.
Okay.
For people who, and that time you have to reset the salaries.
Okay.
Yes, for example, the optometrist supply became more difficult because of, say, a lens cart coming in, or a Titan eye. So you could see that the optometrists that you were getting at a higher range, because people were going to, say, a lens cart or a Titan eye, etc. So therefore, we had to reset that. Right. If the induction price was 25,000 for a salary for an optometrist, it got raised to, say, 30,000 or something, because that is what the market was doing at that particular time. So midterm is there, and normally it's a 1-year single appraisal.
Okay.
Kulkarni sir, do you want to add?
Yeah, sir. Usually when you talk about the team incentive, this individual incentive thing, which we had tried earlier, and then we have found out that it creates more bitterness and unhealthy competition. Means supposing you are somebody who is paying less, and then that seems to be like a burden to the OT staff, that they are putting up same amount of efforts for a patient who is not paying so much. So we have actually almost stopped this individual incentives in our teams. And as Maipal sir very rightly said, that it's a complete incentive on the performance, which is divided. Now, this division obviously is different for the hierarchy. I mean, somebody who is a surgeon, then somebody who is the counselor, somebody who is the sweeper, the percentage will differ, how much they will get it. But we decide that this is the amount which will be given as an incentive in this month. And then it is divided depending on their quality of work which they are doing. And that we are doing it since now almost 12 to 13 years. But individual incentives we have stopped. the people who come to us even now also, the first thing they demand that, sir, how much we are going to get as an incentive. Like when we had our NGO hospital, the first thing people used to say, the fellows, कि sir वो cutting को कितना मिलेगा? So this kind of approach is something which is detrimental to the institute as well as to the patients as much. Sometimes you may not get good number of people to work for you, but whosoever is working for you, then probably he will be retained for a more time, and you will have a better happy memories of the work which is done by him.
Thank you.
Right.
Just
Yes,
on
Pandit.
similar lines, we are moving into the era where ophthalmologists
Kuldeep, a little louder.
developing. We are moving into the era where now slowly the teams will be not developed by ophthalmologists but by the corporate giants. So do you find a difference in the approach, the way the ophthalmology practice that is going to move with this MBA in healthcare leading a team as against the medical person leading a team? Is that going to be a reality or it's not likely to be successful?
Kuldeep, I can tell you one thing. I will give you the example of our experience and where you are now more intimately connected with the chain of Lions Eye hospitals. You had seen very few hospitals were run by the doctors themselves. Like here, HV Desai is being run by Colonel Saib. Lions Eye Hospital was being run by me. And then those branches which were not run or where the management was different, the approach differs so much, because then the question of cost cutting comes, the question of the target and profiteering comes, and then people do not understand where you have to give the advantage of. So basically, if the ophthalmologist is working as the leader of that thing, there will be a set pattern which will be set and which will be always useful for the patients, including the institution. When you have non-ophthalmologist or somebody who doesn't understand the intricacies of this eye surgeries, they usually think about what is the margin. I will give you a simple one example. I think Colonel Sahib was also there at that time with us. One of our administrators suddenly decided that phaco is costly and we should stop doing phacos because SIS is cheaper. The problem was, I told them that ours is a training institute. People do come here for training in SIS and phaco both. If you say that this is costly, because the cost was calculated as the fixed number of surgeries which can be performed by a particular phaco machine. Now, this is something which is a very odd way of calculating the cost. So that's what I said, that if you have an eye surgeon heading the things are much better for everybody who is working. I think Colonel Sahib can just add to this whatever I feel.
I agree with you. There needs to be because things are advancing. There is a need for having a trained hospital administrator, because everything has to be now, the era of evidence-based decisions has to be taken, as Kuldeep rightly says many a time, and the data has to be checked, purified, seen. So this doctor can't do it. He can't. A technical man should be engaged in technical work so that it can more finance he can earn. And at the same time, what happens if it totally goes in the hands of a financer or a sort of a administrator? You won't understand the human element of medicine.
Exactly, sir.
Which a doctor understands, because there's a complication or there's something happens. So this, you are digested it many times in your life. So your approach to that is entirely different. Whereas the administrator may not have that approach. But what we need today is that two things, I would like to say that apart from having a sort of a head as a hospital administrator, what is more important to have the managers, mid-level managers, because we are talking about a team building, not running a hospital. Team is can be run properly if you have somebody mid-level fellow who is going to look after that team. You can't, higher man cannot look after it. He cannot give them advice or see. So we need to operational managers, you can call it. Those are the cadre we have to develop. And I don't know, we can't stop it. You and me can't stop it.
Yeah. Dr. Anuradha, you want to
Very
add?
few fortunate people like Professor Maipal, who are as head of an organization, but soon you'll find that they're all replaced by the administrators. Time is not very soon is going to come. I fear that. But then I only pray that there should be a very striking balance, mutual respect to the doctor heading the team and with the administrator. Then and then only we'll have a smooth team building and good operation.
Yeah, just adding to what Deshpande sir has said, the human factor. I feel if a businessman is running a corporate hospital and the difference, like if a doctor is running a corporate hospital, the difference is compassion. First thing, what I feel is compassion is very much lacking in business persons, and they will look only at the profit.
Profits.
So they will, ethics just go haywire. I mean, they just say, that you have to do 100 surgeries means you have to do 100 surgeries. So whether that patient needs a surgery or not, that is the main question. Why do we want a person to undergo surgery when he does not need it? So the best person to form a team and then run your own hospital or make corporate hospitals, I think the best person would be an ophthalmologist himself. And the second thing is, of course, the SOPs we can set very well, like the standard operating procedures, because we have gone through it. We have done the surgeries. We have seen the OPD. So, it is easier for us to set the SOPs, and then you allow your team, or you tell your team to follow the SOPs. So I feel definitely a doctor should run it.
Yes.
Also, do you have any?
Something knows the trustees.
I will just want to.
This spoils the game.
I just want to disagree to a significant extent.
Yeah.
See, the basic problem is that when you are working as a doctor, if I have to do 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours of clinical work, I'm stretching myself, and the kind of contribution that I can do is going to be linear. Okay, but if case I want to extend my wings, etc., and do so an exponential kind of an increase, then I possibly have to get out of my clinical work and take care of expansion and growth and strategy, etc. So that is something which is obviously every one of us has 24 hours, and you may be good at doing certain things, but then you kind of get constrained on that particular. The problem with doctors is that we have not understood the cost of goods. We have not understood the return on capital employed, because the example that was given of a phaco machine. Now, if that person says that a phaco machine and a handpiece has a life, there is no harm in calculating that and adding it into the training cost. I'm not saying that training should take off phaco, but the point is that if you are taking for SICS a training cost of say 50,000 rupees, whatever maybe the X amount that you are taking, for the same number of phaco emulsification procedures, you could instead of 50,000 take 1 lakh rupees. So there is no harm in actually calculating the cost. And that is something that people, because unfortunately, we have not had any economics teaching. We have no business administration teaching. We have learned by the fly. The problem is that is something that needs to be calculated as to what would be the return on capital on an equipment. There are a lot of equipments we buy only for our ego satisfaction and ego massage. कि भाई मैंने ये खरीदना, ये आ गया, somebody comes and tells you कि भाई आपने अब, for example, let me give you an example. There is an OCT with a microscope which costs 3 crore rupees. Now, actually, how does it help the return on capital on that particular thing, except an All India Institute of Medical Sciences or a place which is working on taxpayers' money? So there, if you have calculated the cost benefit ratio, there is nothing wrong in doing that. You should not call that. That is something very correct, that a business has to, or an organization has to survive. There are X number of organizations who did not change and they decayed. There were people who were working only on grants. Now these grants are being taken away by few big organizations, and the smaller organizations are not getting the grants. There is a change that is happening, and it's happening very, very fast. Now, money is coming into healthcare, especially after COVID, and money is going to come into specialities which have low gestation period, and which have a higher return on capital employed. And ophthalmology is one of them.
Correct.
So whatever you may say or whatever you may think, the big bulge private equity players are looking very, very intensely at all these things. You thought Vasan was dead, but Vasan got sold at 520 crores. Okay. So yeah, so basically the point is that the big bulge private equity players have the money and they are obviously looking at rolling up the practices. You have seen in front of your eyes, specifically in Maharashtra, people whom you would have never thought would sell their practices are selling their practices today.
Correct.
And I do not think that there is anything wrong in that, because you need to monetize your entire lives. You don't have a succession plan. You cannot grow your business to a bigger level. And tomorrow something happens to you, your business becomes zilch. So during your lifetime, you should have a succession planning. Whether you have a succession planning of your somebody else taking over or you are selling your business, because that is going to happen, and that has happened the world over. My like relatives in US who had practices have all sold their practices to big bulge player, and money power is going to be very, very important, and there is a lot of money that is going to come into ophthalmology. So mind you that there are earlier, I think our group was the only one which was doing mergers and acquisitions. Now there are 4 groups who are looking after mergers and acquisitions. So it is the time to make hay while the sun shines. You are getting more, but essentially money is going to come into ophthalmology. And you can see, for example, Ayer in China, it controls 10% of the ophthalmology in China, because they have a lot of funding and they have a valuation of more than 20 billion US dollars. Similarly, you have a Madurai or an Arvind, which does every 6th cataract in Tamil Nadu is done by Arvind. So there is going to be consolidation of business. You will have MBAs and you will have people who have experience in business management run it more efficiently. It is to make yourself a lean and mean machine. It is not that you are, I disagree with Dr. Anuradha that ethics means you cut people who are not requiring to get cut. It does not happen. We are private equity backed, but you can, if you can point it out that in our centers, we are cutting where a person is not required to be cut, your practice will decay. You have to give honest clinical opinion, and you can, there is enough money and profit to be made by doing work honestly. Please, it is the easiest to paint a brush and say that because you are looking at profits also, therefore you will be dishonest. No, with honesty, what Debashish calls as good money and bad money, with honesty, there is enough good money to be made, because it is an underserved country in India, and you can make, and the price points are going higher. The corporates, we hesitate to raise our prices, but in a corporate, every April, 1st of April, they increase the rates by 5 to 7%, which we do not do. We are hesitant that patient chala jayega, jo chala jayega, your cost is going up, your rentals are going up, your electricity is going up, diesel is going up, your salaries are going up, and therefore you have to do it. So there is no harm in looking at your balance sheet. There is no harm. So for example, today, if we are getting an equally good lens from say A company as compared to a B company, and that B company has sweet talked you into buying a lens, for example, let's not take name, but there are lenses which came and which give you glistening all over, but they are still, nobody talks about the glistenings that you see in that hydrophobic lens which is there, and you are paying much more than a glistening free lens that you are getting from another company. Now, what is the harm in switching over to that other company? If somebody is smart, is shrewd enough, he will switch over to that other company, and you cannot call it anything. You cannot say that it is just smart thinking. Yes. So a business acumen is required, and that is what is fundamentally lacking in ophthalmologists. And money is going to be important for growth. If you have to grow, you have to keep on buying equipment, and without money, you cannot buy equipment. Or you have to open a new center or a new facility. The facility needs to be redone. I know, for example, a facility that we made 15 years ago didn't look as good. So we spent 2 crores on redoing it. So you have to redo the facility every X number of years, etc., etc. That you have to move along. So I don't I disagree totally that if you are a corporate, it is the doctor's own individual ethical practices that he has to sleep with his own conscience.
Correct.
I wanting to make profits, it does not mean that I will cut anybody who does not have a cataract. If I was cutting somebody who does not have a cataract, none of the ophthalmologists sitting here would refer a patient to me.
Correct.
All of them are today, the maximum number of patients I get is by referral from a doctor or an ophthalmologist or a doctor getting their own surgery done. And that is, the two are not that if you have to make money, you have to be dishonest. I do not agree with that.
Okay, just the last question that I'm now going to ask, that most of the corporates and big companies have a dedicated budget in developing team, developing HR, people, putting people on bench for and looking at the opportunities for the future. How many of us are looking from that point of view as an industry and have that sort of a budget dedicated for HR development? Do we really keep certain amount specific in our annual budget for that sort of activity?
Yeah, everybody can speak on this. It's a good, very nice question.
If you want to attract the talent, you need to have some sort of a provision for that. Otherwise, you'll become stale very soon, and people may not remain with you. You need to have, suppose that you don't have a vacancy now, and you've got a bright person coming to you, demanding a job or some fellowship. You can't deny him. You have to spend some money on him as a investment. So it is sort of has to be some left to the medical director, who should choose and convince his boss, or if he's a boss himself, that we have to retain, we have to engage them. Otherwise, you will not be able to attract talent.
Sir, and basic problem is you have to develop your own paramedical forces also.
Yes.
Remember that we had started the optometry colleges, we had started the nursing colleges, because, and then paramedical assistants also, because if you train them, they are going to be much more useful to you, because they have been brought up in your school of thought. And nowadays you realize that even the MS ophthalmology people who join your team usually hardly are capable enough to do independent things. So similar is with the optometrist. Second thing, what happens is that we go on attending the conferences and webinars and the peer-reviewed things, while we forget that our optometrists and the nurses and the paramedical people also need to be updated if they have to cope up with whatever you are doing in your own practice. Otherwise, you become something like a successful eye surgeon or maybe a talented one. And then the people don't get a benefit, your own patients, because of the shabbiness with which your team is working. So basically, team building has to be right from up to down. Then only that team is going to work better for the patient as well as for the institute also.
Last thing I would like to add, much depends on the leader to develop and maintain and grow the team. I think leadership and governance has a lot to do on this, and that should also be kept in mind.
So, Dr. Kuldeep, sorry, go ahead, sir.
No, that leadership does not mean a single man sitting at a head. Leadership at all levels.
So, Dr. Kuldeep, what I will wish to say is that even those who are listening to this interaction, even if they make a budget, I am 100% sure that majority of the ophthalmologists do not even make a budget for the year.
Correct.
Okay. So the first thing that you have to do is to make a budget. And in that budget, you have to obviously say where I am today, where I will be tomorrow, whether I need this much for capex. You have to see all these things have to be taken. आपका जो सामान खराब हो रहा है उसमें कितने पैसे लगेंगे? So you have to keep 3-4% of the value of the equipment that you have for repairing and doing that, AMC, CMC. So you have to actually budget these particular things and then work on capex. That what is the capital expenditure for what is my new demand that I have to do and how I am going to meet that. And then you have also to look at HR, you have to look at increments, you have to look at incentives, you have to look at continuing medical education, which is very, very important. So every echelon or every staff at every level needs to be trained. So we forget that there is training for a pharmacist. We forget that there is a training for a person who is manning your optical counter. There is so much that has happened, say in lenses. We do not care that the optometrist needs to be trained or the nurses need to be trained. Even the OPD attendant needs to be trained. He needs
Yes.
to be given soft skill training. कि भाई कैसे पेशेंट से बात करनी है, कैसे वेटिंग टाइम कम कराना है, क्या कराना है. So there has to be investment into continuous upgradation of the skills and continuous training, and that has to be budgeted. So there has to be an element of a budget for this particular thing. There has to be an annual get together, or there has to be meetings or offsites, etc., etc. And that needs to be budgeted too, that okay, we will do this, top performers can go somewhere, laggards can be taken someplace or whatever it is, and they need to be told. And so that is very, very important. That first step is make a budget. Divide the budgets into the imperatives, must have. This is something that we have to have, good to have, need not have, and will not have. So you have to divide your budget and the spend that you are going to do through the year on that, and how you are going to get the revenue for that, and how you are going to meet the ends. That is something which is very, very important. And there is no harm in keeping your cost of goods and your consumable cost. You have to set a target. We have even paid, say, EY or PwC to do an analysis as to how we can reduce the cost of goods. And there is nothing unethical about it. It is just better management, and it is just this thing, and they charge you maybe up to 1 crore of rupees. That is fine, but they will get you 4 to 5 crores or 6 crores or 10 crores of saving, which goes straight into your profit. So there is enough and more of wastage that we are doing. There is enough and more better prices that you can get, which you don't know, which you can get from third party. Maybe a syringe that you are buying, maybe you could save 10 paisa or 20 paisa on it, on whatever it is. So basically, there are consolidators today who you can go to and you can get better prices, which we don't think. And there is no harm in an MBA or a business administrator or a business or a strategist telling you that if you don't own one, you can outsource it, and ask them to tell you how to improve the functioning or how you can do that. There should be an audit on your manpower. At times you need 6 people, you have 12 people hired for the same thing. Can an IT infrastructure make 6 people redundant? So this is a constant evolution, and you have to start thinking about these particular things, which a common ophthalmologist does not have the time to think. He may not even have the mind to think, but on top of that, he does not have the time to think, because if he is successful, he will be doing surgeries day in, day out.
Sir, one more question which I'd like to ask you specific is regarding contractual labor stuff. That is one. And second is outsourcing of certain things. Which one in your organization you feel needs to be outsourced, and where do we have contractual labor, as there is a high attrition rate, as you rightly said, because they want growth opportunities? Do we save on this? Is this smart way of going about, or we should not do it?
So contractual labor, there is something legal about it that you can't have more than X percentage of the people as contractual. So that is something out you cannot. Regarding outsourcing, yes, our outsourcing of our guards, etc., that is there, your sanitary, etc., those are the things that you can outsource. But the unfortunate problem is that when we outsource, telecallers can be outsourced. So those are the things, unfortunately, we don't get GST input credit. So you lose 18% on that, right? So if I am taking a service from somebody else, I have to pay a GST of 18% on that. And as it is, they are keeping a profit. So your cost actually becomes a little higher. So that is something, therefore, in healthcare, outsourcing we are doing in a limited manner, but in other industries, even your HR functions, your company secretary, your auditors, etc., there are a lot of things that people are outsourcing. We get this 18% burden, which at times is a big spoiler for outsourcing, but otherwise it's not a bad idea for doing outsourcing on certain facilities.
And
Which are the things which you outsource? Sorry,
contractual labor is not cheap. You have to pay almost 27-29% extra.
Yes.
Okay.
And you can't take more than X percentage.
That you are right to say. That you are right to say.
नहीं सर, आउटसोर्सिंग का जो आपने बात किया है अभी महिपाल से, That is to cut down, not the cut down the cost, but have more peace of mind, or just because we don't have that facility to do that, that is why you're doing it. What are the reasons for outsourcing?
No, I said because of the attrition, see the call center. If we have about 20-25 people for answering our calls across the country. So, but they are at one location. So that is something that you can outsource, because you know that the attrition rate in call center is going to be very, very high. Guards, the attrition rate can be very, very high. Those kinds of high karamcharis, the attrition rate can be very, very high. So these are a couple of the things. And then HR also, payroll. Payroll is something that people outsource. They charge, I don't know, I haven't outsourced, but they charge 100 rupees or 150 rupees per employee for their per month, etc., etc. So you can even outsource the payrolls, because that way you are compliant with provident fund, gratuity, etc., etc., ECHS. So there are these particular things, these team leads, etc. These companies have grown significantly within India also, where you can outsource a lot of things. So where you cannot afford a person, if you are a smaller organization, then it is better to outsource, and there is even if you get a hit of GST, it doesn't matter.
That's all for me. It's almost 10:30, 35. We can conclude the meeting. Any final concluding remarks from any of the panelists, or we can conclude?
Yeah. Yeah, and what's the go message everybody would like to say, sir, as experts in the team building and working as a team? Let's have each one of them say a few words before I conclude. And thanks, Kuldeep, for excellent moderation.
Thank you, sir.
Basically, my point is, sir, that it's going to be very, very difficult to have individual practices henceforth. And the question of waiting for the patients to come is fast becoming unreal because of the marketing tactics by the newer generation. So it's better to come together, and that is how save on your cost and increase your income, as well as have a peace of mind. So coming together and forming a team, whether of a like-minded people or with a different talents and different specialities, is the way to go forward from henceforth.
Definitely, sir. I agree to. Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Bolo. Say na.
Okay. Yeah. So just adding to what Kulkarni sir has said, even I feel that the government norms and the fire safety norms and so many other things, that we should come together and work as a team, because together each one achieves more. Definitely, we are stronger as a team. So we should work as a team.
Last thing, what I would like to say, nothing succeeds like success. We need to have a sustainable organization, and then only we can have a good team. And I agree with Professor Maipal that we need to earn. Unless we earn, we cannot implement team building or anything. So there has to be a good mix of earning and doing service, both. And I don't know what's going to be the future of NGOs. Also, someday, we should talk about it. But team is a must.
Yeah, Maipal sir, boliye.
So I think you don't create a business, you create a team, and the team creates the business for you. So that's very, very important, that you need to invest in human resource. And that is the key for success. Alone, you can achieve only this much. And if you have to have an incremental growth, you have to create a team and get the best out of them. So very important. And I think one should adapt to change. And being straight-jacketed and being so you need to get out of your comfort zone. That's what I call. You need to get out of your comfort zone to create something. And what Colonel Deshpande said, I just want to add a word to sustenance. Sustenance is decay. It's sustenance and growth. So I think growth is most important. That you have to be, if you are sustaining, be sure that that is the beginning of decay.
And development and growth. That you must. Development has to be there. Without development, I don't think you don't have right to be sustained.
Yes.
So nice of you, all the expert panelists, very varied and different opinions, but a lot to learn from this webinar. Big thank you, Professor Mahipal, for agreeing to at such a short notice. Actually, I had just called you up on Saturday, and you said, "Yeah, Papa Jignesh, mein ready, I am coming." So much so with all the other faculties also. Very ready. I just asked Anuradha. She is actually a motivational speaker, and she's been taking talks all over India and international also. So she had given this topic, sir, अपन ये लेते हैं, it will be benefiting all the MOS members. And rightly, she was part of the panelists also. And with the expert views from Colonel Deshpande and Professor Kulkarni, and a well-moderated session by Dr. Kuldeep, I think we have a lot of things which have come up in this webinar, and it's going to be very, very helpful, not only for the budding ophthalmologists, the fellows and the postgraduates, but people like us also who are very much in practice for such a long time. They're definitely going to benefit. So a big thank you to all of you. And thanks to enrolled people who have been there, and of course our dear audience, the fellow ophthalmologists and the MOS members who have been part of this webinar. Thanks for attending so late and being part of it. And Professor Rajesh Joshi now to give the vote of thanks. And before that, the enrolled people would like to show a short video clip for about 30 seconds. Syed, can we have a screenshot, gallery screenshot? Let's have everybody's video on. So this will be a little nostalgic for me also. During my presidency, big people have come and joined and given a lot of ideas and practical tips. Yes, Syed. Syed Ashwin, are you there?
Yes, sir. Requesting all the speakers to please look into the camera.
Yeah.
Done, sir.
Yeah. Can you play a video quickly before we have the vote of thanks by Professor Joshi, Rajesh Joshi, my honorary secretary? Thank you, enrolled people. We are going to, for the benefit of the audience, I would like to say this is a series that we are conducting on personality development and public speaking. One of the 21 committees, we are actively involved, as I just said. This is the third of the series. Every month, we are going to come up with new panelists and new people who are going to share varied ideas and see that there will be overall development and wellness of our MOS member. Thank you, each one of you, for joining. A big thanks to all the faculty who have, at a very short notice, honored my word. Over to you, Rajesh.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. The essence of today's discussion is building a team and creating second generation is of importance to keep going. Generating opportunities and updating time to time and giving incentives are fundamental to retain team spirit. Succession planning is crucial. Thank you, Deshpande sir, Kulkarni sir, and Mahipal Sachdev sir for touching this important topic of team development. Thank you for sparing your valuable time. Thank you, Dr. Kuldeep and Anu, for conducting sessions so well. I also applaud initiative of Dr. Taswala sir. I'm also thankful to all those who have joined on virtual platform for today's webinar. Thanks to Entod for the technical support. Thank you so much and good night.
Right.
Thanks a lot. Can you stop the recording, Syed? We can have an
you.
informal discussion for a minute before we sign off.